In this video, I'm going to show you how to place the rear brakes, pads, and rotors on this Ram 2500. Let's install these TRQ brakes. The original wheels are no longer on this truck, so I have to do a little bit of a different setup here to remove the wheel. I have a center cap that has to come off and then a different size for the lug nuts. However, whatever you have for lug nuts holding the wheel on, remove them all. Remove the wheel. Before we start, I'm going to break free the bleeder screw with a 10mm wrench just so it can be easier to break free later when we compress the pistons. There we go. Snug it up so that fluid doesn't leak, but don't make it extra tight. From the backside, remove the two 14mm bolts that hold this caliper onto the bracket. At this point, you should be able to remove the caliper. You can use a little pry bar or screwdriver and stick it in here. Squeeze the pistons in just a little. That'll give you more wiggle room. Now you can easily slide it out, and I'm going to lift it and put it right up here. That way it doesn't pull on this brake hose. Now remove the pads. If they're stuck, you can use a screwdriver or whatever you have that will help you pry them out. Mine aren't really stuck, so there they are. Now we're going to use a 21mm socket and remove the two bolts that hold the caliper bracket onto the axle. This one up here can be a little trickier to get to. Once broken free, you should be able to remove it by hand. However, don't take it out all the way. Break free and remove the lower one first. Now remove them both and remove the caliper bracket from the vehicle. At this point, you should be able to remove the rotor. If it's seized on here, you'll know because it won't even move. Mine moves, but it's just a little bit stuck from the parking brake shoes, so give it a wiggle and slide it off. Okay, clearly we have to address those. All right, shoes are fixed. So now let's clean up the hub surface on this, hub where the rotor mounts so that we can get a nice clean area for the rotor to mount on. If yours is in this poor of condition, which isn't actually all that bad, you could probably just get away with a wire brush. I'm going to use a wire wheel on a drill and just clean everything up. If yours is in even worse condition, consider sanding this. And if it's in great condition, then just rinse it down with some brake parts cleaner. Now I'm going to add a thin layer of anti-seize to the entire surface of this hub. That way it doesn't rust in the future and also the rotor doesn't seize up. Also get some anti-seize on the this ring here, the center bore of the hub where the rotor sits. This is also where it is highly likely for it to seize up. And you want a thin layer. If you put too much, you'll actually get it squished out onto the rotor once the rotor gets bolted on with the wheel and everything. And you want to avoid that, of course. You don't want anti-seize and grease getting all over the place. So just get a thin layer all over. We should be good to go. Avoid getting it on the lug studs, however. Those threads need to stay nice and dry. Put the rotor on backwards, and that's so that you can clean it off a lot easier. You want to make sure you get any oils off with brake parts cleaner and a clean rag. Spray it down and wipe it off. Of course, do the same on the inside here where the parking brake shoes ride. You want to make sure that surface is clean and oil-free as well. Now take it, flip it over, install it the right way, of course. Press it on all the way and clean the outer surface as well. There we go. Now let's clean up the caliper bracket to get it ready to install on the vehicle. First thing I'm going to do is remove the anti-rattle clips from it, the old ones. Pop these out. And then with a wire brush, because mine isn't in too bad of condition, I'm going to wire brush this area. If yours is in really poor condition, consider sanding it or using a wire wheel on a drill, whatever you have to do, but get this nice and cleaned up here. With these cleaned up, I'm going to apply a thin layer of silicone paste. This is rated for brakes, which means it does withstand high temperatures. You want to make sure that whatever grease you're using to lubricate this is rated for high temperatures. So if you have brake grease, that's perfect. If you have silicone paste, well, make sure it's rated. Having said that, you want to just put a thin layer on. Otherwise, when you go to install the anti-rattle clips, it'll squeeze the silicone paste out. It'll get in the center here where the rotor is, and that is not good. Make sure you put these on the right way. They're going to have a larger hook and a smaller, lower profile hook. The smaller one goes in the center so that the rotor can have space, and the larger hook goes towards the outside here so that it can grab on properly. Now flip it over, do the same on this side. Now I want to pay attention to the slider pins. I'm going to take them out, inspect them, and clean them one at a time. Once you take it out, wipe them off, make sure they're in good condition. These are in perfect condition. Make sure the boots are good. These are also good. If there's a lot of dried up grease in there, try to get it out. Mine's in great shape, actually. So all I'm going to do is add some more grease to the inside of the boot here. Work it around, and then a little bit extra on the slider pin. You can't put too much on the pin, otherwise it'll just get wiped off as you try to slide it in. So just a little bit, as well as up here on this ridge where the boot seals up. Slide the pin in, make sure you press it all the way, and then as you can see there's air bound up in there, so push the pin, squeeze the boot. That's going to release pretty much all of the air. Give it a couple twists to seat it in here, work the grease around, and then do the same to the other pin. Grab your caliper bracket and slide it over the rear axle. Line up the two bolts and start them in. Bottom these out, and the torque for these is 190 foot-pounds. Grab your pads and slide them in. Make sure that these hooks go over the hooks on the anti-rattle clip, just like so. And put the other one on as well. These should slide on easily into the bracket. If they don't, and if they get bound up, that means you didn't clean it up enough and they're getting squished, so go back and clean some more. Now let's push the pistons of the caliper back. Take that same 10mm wrench you used earlier, break the bleeder screw free. At this point it should be a lot easier to do it. Brake fluid is coming out, so let's grab our tool and push these back. I'm going to use one of the old pads as a spacer. I'm also letting this fluid go into a collection bucket, by the way. Now slowly press the pistons in. Okay, they're bottomed out. Remove your tool. Let a little bit of fluid come through so you make sure there's no air. Close this up. There we go. Clean up the caliper. Use a brake parts cleaner to just get all the brake fluid off that leaked. Now grab the caliper, slide it over the pads and over the rotor here. Line it up with the two slider pins. Have your mounting bolts ready and thread them on once they line up. With these bottomed out, let's torque them to 24 foot-pounds. All right, let's get the wheels back on. Start on all 8 of your lug nuts, bottom them out in a cross pattern, and then torque them to 130 foot-pounds also in a cross pattern. $130 in a cross pattern, here we go. Double check them if you want. In my case, I have to put back the center cap. There you have it, job is done.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.